I explored a ghost town deep in the forests of Oregon. Something followed me home. For context, I'm an urban explorer. I like to spend my weekends researching and hiking to all kinds of different places. Some sites are just abandoned houses, hospitals, residential buildings. But my favorite sites are the ones that have been lost to time. I was particularly excited for this trip. I had heard about a spot other urban explorers had discovered where the ruins of a town from the late 1800s had been remarkably well preserved. The only issue was the location. It was about a 10-mile hike through the woods with no easy-to-follow trails. Still, the prospect of such an awesome location had me eager to go explore. I found the hike through the woods to be more grueling than I had originally thought. I had to navigate around a couple of large creeks and my handheld GPS was having some technical difficulties, but I carried on. After 6 hours I arrived at the site and the annoyances I felt on the way there immediately vanished. For being abandoned almost 150 years ago, this place was absolutely stunning. So much of the original town remained intact. There were several home sites, what I think would have been a general goods store and a church, all lining an old stone road that ended at the site of a partially collapsed well. I grabbed my camera from my pack and spent a few minutes just snapping some photos and taking it all in before I ventured into the first house. Right away I knew something was off. Someone had clearly been keeping up the place. The inside was way too clean, and the furniture seemed to be newer. Probably from the 70s if I had to guess. I knew there had been other explorers here before, but it would be very strange of them to take the time to sweep the floors and wipe down all the cabinets, etc. I shrugged it off, took some photos and moved on. My next stop was the church. It was by far in the best shape and I was eager to see inside. It was very similar to the house, well put together and clean. Everything from the 70s except for the pews, which looked like they may have been a part of the original building. There was a large red book on the altar with strange lettering that seemed to have some serious age to it. This piqued my curiosity. Just as I was about to open the book I heard something behind me. It sounded like rats scurrying across the floor, not uncommon in this hobby. I looked around but didn't find anything. When I turned my attention back to the book, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps heading towards me. Each step was slow and distinct, and the wood seemed to groan under the weight. One step, then silence, another step, then silence. I was frozen in place, trying to comprehend what I was hearing when the noise suddenly stopped right in front of me. I winced in anticipation. I don't know why, but the silence was even more terrifying somehow. After a few seconds went by and nothing happened, I regained my composure a bit and walked outside. I was shaken up for sure, but after about a 20-minute debate with myself and a few attempts to rationalize what I heard, I decided to stay. I had come all this way and leaving so early just wasn't in the cards. I continued down the road to the next home site. It was very similar to the first. I snapped some photos and was headed to the door when I heard someone talking quietly outside. I listened for a minute and tried to make out what they were saying, but it was too quiet to tell. Now I was sure I wasn't alone. I crept out slowly and quietly, but the sound of the door shutting was a bit too loud. I held my breath. The whispers stopped for a second but picked up again shortly. At this point I was ready to leave. I needed to grab my pack, which I had left over by the well. But I could tell the whispers were coming from that general direction. I knew I couldn't find my way back without the GPS though. I watched the area for 10 minutes waiting for someone to step out from wherever they were hiding. When no one did, I made my way over. I grabbed my pack and was about to book it when I heard the same whispers coming from the well. Call it morbid curiosity or a lack of survival instincts, but I began to walk towards it. It was almost like I was in some kind of trance. My heart was pounding out of my chest and my brain was sending screaming signals telling me to run. But I just couldn't turn around. The whispering stopped. I grabbed onto the side of the well and peered over. There was nothing but debris and dirty water at the bottom. Suddenly I felt a pair of hands push me from behind so hard that I nearly fell in head first. Luckily, I'd been holding the side wall and was just barely able to stop myself. I whipped around prepared to fight, but there wasn't anyone there. I was completely freaked out, and as I backed away from the well, I heard the most horrifying inhumane growl come from it. I turned and ran out of there as fast as I could. I ran for probably half a mile, scraping myself on all kinds of trees and plants as I went. After a few minutes of peace, I was able to collect myself just enough to navigate out of those woods and back to my car. It's been 3 days since then, and I think the strange things that happened out there are happening in my house. For the past 2 nights I've had terrible dreams about that town. Yesterday, I heard the same growl coming from my backyard, and I keep hearing strange knocking sounds on various doors and windows around the house. I've never been a spiritual person, but I don't know what to think anymore. If you have any advice on how to handle this or what I should do next, please let me know.